Hello YouTube, Space Cowboy here. In this video, I'm going to talk more about how we can get output from our programs, and specifically, I'm going to talk a lot more about the print function, which will display messages in the console, which is really helpful to programmers. You can kind of get information about what your programming is doing, see if it's working properly, that sort of thing. Every programming language has some sort of a print function. JavaScript, I believe, has console.log. Java system.out.println. So this is a really common programming function, and it's built into Python. In the future, we're going to show you how to actually create your own custom functions that you can call anytime you want. So functions are a really important programming structure. Let's see this very first line of code. I've talked about this before, but I use the print function to print out a string, and the string is \033 lowercase c. And what that does is it clears the terminal of kind of like some garbage. So if we clear this and we print, it starts off with this Python is awesome right there at the top of the console. Let's comment this out real quick. Remember, comments kind of act like light switches. And run it again. And you can see it printed out at spaceCowboyCoder arrow /workspaces /python $home code space .python, all that. It's the path, the file path, right? We don't need to see that every time, so that's why I print out, or I use this print function at the beginning of all my programs. So let's clear the terminal and see it is nice and cleared, right, of all that garbage. Let's see, the print function is often used to output variables. So I'm not sure if I mentioned this, I probably already did, but there's a lot of different ways we can get output from different programming languages. And sometimes we want to write information on the screen itself for the user, and that would use something different. Okay, that would be like a write function or something that actually produces output on a screen, and that you can actually format. So you can, create a mobile app with text where you want it, make it the right font and color and size, all that good stuff. All right. So the first thing I do is I declared a variable and assigned Python is awesome, a string, and I print out that variable x, lowercase x. You can see the first thing is Python is awesome. Cool, we've seen that a bunch. I don't need to spend too much more time on that. All right, in the print function, you can also output multiple variables separated by a comma. This is not something I do very often, but you should just be aware of the things and the tools that you have available to you. That's kind of like what coding is like. You don't need to have all of this stuff memorized. You can look it up, okay? So this is not something I use a lot, but I think it's kind of cool. So I have three variables, x, y, and z. X gets assigned Python, y gets assigned is, and z gets assigned awesome. And then I print out x, y, z. So you can print out multiple variables separated by a comma. And what I think is interesting about this is when you do this, it puts a space between those strings. So the first, actually, I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this to Python is cool, so that you see like the difference in the output. Clear, run. First thing is Python is cool. This second print with the XYZ prints out Python is awesome. Notice these strings, Python is awesome, do not have a space. There's no space after the N. There's no space after the S and is. By doing this or printing out multiple variables, it put those spaces in for you, which is kind of interesting. Again, not something I do very often. All right, the concatenation operator. This is a fancy word of saying combine together. Okay, so the concatenation operator is the plus symbol. All right, so it's used for addition. When we're doing math in Python, we're going to use the plus operator just like you do in math class. But the concatenation operator is how we combine strings together. Okay, so when you see that plus, sometimes it means plus and sometimes it means concatenate. So just keep that in mind. It means two different things. Notice here I have X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to do, so you can see the difference again, I'm going to do coding. Oops. Coding is awesome. Okay. Let's run it again, see what we get. Okay. Oh, interesting. You see this? The spaces were not added automatically. Coding is awesome is all jammed together. That's because we're just combining these three words into one. So when you use the concatenation operator, when you're concatenating strings, you are responsible for the output. The programmer is responsible for the output on the screen, so you need to put in a space after the G and after the S. And if you do that, coding it is awesome. Should look correct this time. Sweet. Print it out. Again, I've already mentioned this, but printing out the new line, \n, that's an escape character that just drops you down to the next line. Without those, all of the output would be like close together. So anyways, that's why I'm printing out a \n escape character. It's called the new line character. I don't know if I mentioned that. All right. For numbers, of course, the plus character works as a mathematical operator. I already mentioned that. So I've got X gets assigned 5, Y gets assigned 10, and I print out X plus Y. But here I've got two integers, whereas up here I've got strings. So you concatenate strings, or you combine strings with the plus operator, the concatenation operator, sorry, and you perform addition with the plus operator as well. All right, so here I've got ints, so those are going to be added just like normal math. It's going to be 15, and you can see down there. Whereas up here, we're just combining these strings together. All right. In the print function, when you try to combine a string with a number with the plus operator, or the concatenation operator actually, Python will give you an error. And you can see I did get an error, line 52. Type error, unsupported operand types for plus or concatenate. We've got int and string, int and int and str. Cool. So let's see how we can fix this. I've got a 5 and a John. Okay, there's no way we're going to be able to do math with that. So I think what this program is intending to do is to concatenate these. So that means that 5 needs to be, or X needs to be a string. You can only concatenate strings together. So we can fix this with typecasting. I have a whole video on typecasting, but all you have to do is change or specify the type that you want the variable to be. And in this case, if we're doing concatenation, we need the X variable not to be an integer, we need it to be a string. So right here, it is fixed by putting str and then the variable in parentheses. All right, let's comment this whole section out so that the program works. How's that sound? Good? Sound good? I'm doing it anyway. All right, cool. So let's see, it should print out 5 John. Now, remember, there's no spacing before the J. So it's literally going to be a 5 with a capital J right next to it. Let's run it. Yep, 5 John. So remember, when you're concatenating, you are responsible for adding spaces so the output looks the way you want it. So I'm going to put a space before the John, and now you can see the output is 5 John. The best way to output variables in the print function is to separate them with commas, which even support different data types. Okay. I'm not sure what else to say about that. I guess the only reason it's the best way, and again, I don't really do it this way very often, is that this adds the space for you. Okay, so that's kind of convenient, so you don't have to worry about adding the space before the J, or the space after the G encoding and the space app, you don't have to worry as much about it if you do use this method for printing out multiple values. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. Try to keep it short. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff. I really appreciate it. The more people interact and share my content, the faster my channel will grow. And I'm new, right? I don't have sponsors. I don't have ads. I don't have any of that stuff. I don't have Patreon. So, help me out. Help me out, dude. All right, that's all I got. See you in the next one. Peace.